Jesus returned to Nazareth. A reading from Luke 4:16-22. He went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him. He began by saying to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his lips. "Isn't this Joseph's son?" they asked.
The response of the people to Jesus in the synagogue in Nazareth established a recurring pattern that continues to this very day. At first, Jesus was praised and admired for his gracious words. He read from Isaiah, and the words of the passage were uplifting and hopeful. The reaction was almost one of pride in the local boy who seemed to be on the road to achieving great things by preaching good news to the poor, by proclaiming the freedom of the prisoners and sight for the blind, and by releasing the oppressed. Who wouldn't want to help the poor, feed the hungry, and give sight to the blind? This sounds like a program anyone would embrace. But what if the words Jesus quotes from Isaiah had a cost attached? What if Jesus inferred that those in his presence might not agree so readily if they were being asked to lift their own fingers? We will see that the reaction was not as pleasant when Jesus turned the words of Scripture on those listening in the synagogue.